Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. We're presented by Gatorade on this Tuesday. I'm Dave Revson. Plenty to get to, an action-packed half hour coming up. It includes a sad day for the UCLA family, the passing of Bill Walton. We will get perspective from his former broadcast partner as well as friend Jason Benetti. All of that coming up, but we're going to start you off with the big story, and that is lacrosse. Busy weekend for the Big Ten with teams in both Final Fours. We're going to start with the men and Maryland. The seventh-seeded Terps struggled a bit down the stretch in the regular season, turned it on in the NCAA tourney, routed Virginia in the Final Four Saturday, but fell to Notre Dame yesterday as the Irish captured their second straight national title. Terps scored the first 2 goals, but Notre Dame rolled from there, winning it 15-5. Michaela Chester got the post-game reaction, starting with John Tillman.
Coach, not the ending you wanted, but a really great season, the turnaround you guys had. Can you put into perspective what you guys were able to accomplish getting back here?
You know, the end of the road is always hard emotionally because you know it's the last time the guys will be together. So you catch yourself trying to manage the moment. You know, first and foremost, hats off to Notre Dame. They've been the best team all year. They proved it today. Very happy for Coach Corrigan and his team. They're awesome. They're really good everywhere. So you have to play really, really well. And we just didn't play well enough, obviously. But I couldn't be more proud of our kids. You know, we had a lot of ups and downs, and we had a lot of, you know, adversity. But the guys just stuck together. They never quit. Guys never pointed the finger, and we just kind of kept believing, even when it didn't seem like there was a lot to believe in, and there was a lot that maybe we weren't doing well. But it's a credit to our leadership, the type of guys in our locker room, the coaching staff, our support staff that, hey, let's just keep trying to get better, and then maybe if we can get a second chance in the tournament, why not us? And so I appreciate the guys buying in. I appreciate the fact that, again, we're one of 2 teams standing. And a year that maybe wasn't our best team, the guys gave Maryland fans a lot to be proud of, and obviously got the championship weekend. So a lot that we can build upon. Obviously, it's just going to be a tough locker room now because for some of those guys, they're never going to wear the jersey again, and that's always the hardest thing.
The outcome today does not take away how much I love each and every one of those guys in that locker room. And what we were able to do was something special. Yeah, we came up a game short, but, you know, the belief, the care, the love that every one of those guys showed me, and hopefully I showed them throughout the year, was truly something special.
Still so much to be proud of when you think of this season. What will you remember most when you think of the run you guys made this year?
I'll remember a lot of things. You know, I'll remember Jack Corus making that run at Penn State, you know, and when truly we look back at it, our season was on the line. We didn't know it then, but I'll remember the ups and downs. You know, that's the part of this journey that we cherish. You know, the ups and downs, yeah, it's hard, but we stuck together, we grew as a group, and I'm proud to call all 50 of those guys in that locker room my best friends. And it's hard to say that we'll never be in the same room again, but again, it doesn't take away the love and care that I truly have for those guys.
Turning to the women's game, and our big stat is brought to you by Gatorade. Izzy Skane and Northwestern falling 14-13 to Boston College in the national championship game Sunday as the Cats were denied their second straight title. Final career game for Skane, who scored 5 goals, including 4 in the second half. She finished her amazing career with an NCAA record 376 goals. Dean Linke, who covers lacrosse for the Big Ten Network, joins us now. Dean, let's talk quickly about this game. Northwestern was up 6-0. It seemed like they were really cruising. And then, obviously, BC makes the run, ends up winning the game. What changed in your mind?
Well, a couple things. One, La Liberty was red hot, so that helped because Boston College is obviously very dangerous, and their key attacking players took off. It's interesting you say they were better than red hot. After the first quarter, I was texting all my lacrosse friends that said, if you want to watch a master class in lacrosse, turn it on. And I was talking about Northwestern, so perhaps I was the ultimate jinx. I'm not sure. But, you know, Boston College is completely loaded. Their attack got into flow, Dave, and I think it affected Northwestern just a little bit. And then at the end, with Northwestern having 3 chances to tie it and just missing, it was heartbreak city. I mean, I felt so bad for this entire team that all came back for one purpose, and that was to win the national championship.
And, of course, falling just 1 game short, but brilliant careers. I mean, we saw the numbers on Izzy Skane. They are historic. Aaron Kuykendall was incredible on defense, and Kendall Halpern was an All-American. I mean, they have great players all over the field. Put the accomplishments of some of those superstars, and I suppose particularly Skane and Kuykendall, into perspective.
Well, those two players, every year they were at Northwestern, they made it to the Final Four and or the championship game, and of course won a championship. And I think you can put a big exclamation point on that. Every single year they were wearing a Northwestern uniform, they were in the Final Four.
Yeah, it is a pretty remarkable accomplishment, no doubt about it. As we look ahead in Big Ten lacrosse, I mean, I think the thing that stands out with Northwestern is they lose a ton of players. I mean, obviously you've got Madison Taylor coming back, but aside from that, most of the headliners are gone on next year's team. What does it mean for the rest of the league, Dean?
Well, it means that there might be some other teams that have a chance. There'll be a lot more parity. We do need to remember they are Northwestern, so they'll hit the transfer portal probably better than anybody and bring in a ton of needs. They'll bring in some of the top freshmen. But to just kind of emphasize what you said, they lose La Liberty, they lose Halpern, Mahoney, Gillespie, and Hansen, their entire D. They lose Skane, Kuykendall, Amonte, and Frank, their top 4 goal scorers. And they leave Schumar and Marshall, who were key players. I think actually it could open the door for a team like Michigan. Yes, they lose Maddie Burns, one of the best defenders, but they have Jill Smith back. They have their goalies back. They have most of their team back. And Hannah Nielsen, who played at Northwestern, will go down as one of the all-time greats at Northwestern, really has Michigan cooking. So I think they can make a ton of noise. Penn State also loses a ton. Johns Hopkins loses a ton. Really every team in the Big Ten loses a ton. Boston College is one of the rare teams that doesn't lose a ton. So I think they've got a big target on their back this time around, and all the Big Ten teams will be looking to take them down if they can make it back to the Final Four. But you said it best, Dave. Northwestern loses a lot, but to be fair, all the teams except Michigan lose quite a bit as well.
Should be a ton of intrigue next season. Dean Linke, thanks so much for adding your perspective. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
So much more to come on the show, including some baseball. We're going to hear from the Huskers. 5 wins in 5 games to capture the Big Ten tourney. Thoughts from Will Bolton, his guys, coming up. Really sad day in the sports world yesterday as Bill Walton, one of the all-time great players in the history of college basketball, passed away at the age of 71 after a battle with cancer. Walton led future Big Ten member UCLA to a pair of national titles. He was 3-time National Player of the Year under the legendary John Wooden. Walton was the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, won an MVP as well as 2 titles, went on to become an entertaining and beloved broadcaster. Tributes pouring in yesterday. UCLA AD Martin Jarman saying, quote, "We are stunned and saddened about the news of Bill Walton's passing. Bill represented so many of the ideals that our university holds dear and embodied multiple traits on Coach Wooden's pyramid of success. He loved being back on campus at UCLA, calling games in Pauley Pavilion, and being around our teams. We offer our deepest sympathy to his family, and we take solace in knowing that Bill made each day his masterpiece." Bruins men's basketball coach Mick Cronin released a statement that read in part, "Beyond his remarkable accomplishments as a player, it's his relentless energy, enthusiasm for the game, and unwavering candor that have been the hallmarks of his larger-than-life personality. As a passionate UCLA alumnus and broadcaster, he loved being around our players, hearing their stories, and sharing his wisdom and advice. For me as a coach, he was honest, kind, and always had his heart in the right place. I will miss him very much. It's hard to imagine a season in Pauley Pavilion without him. Our athletics department, our team, and this university will miss him dearly." Fox Sports' Jason Benetti called games with Bill Walton for many years during his time at ESPN. He joins us now. And Jason, first of all, my condolences. I know it's been a rough 24 hours or so for those who loved Bill Walton, as I know that you did. Tell me what initially went through your mind when you found out yesterday that Bill had passed away.
Yeah, I mean, I never imagined that he would be gone. And my one regret, honestly, I was talking to our longtime producer, Tim Sullivan, who was with Bill for much longer than I was. And I said, my one regret, and this is very true, is that I never asked him on the air what he wanted to be reincarnated as, because I'm certain he would have had a phenomenal answer to that question.
Hey, Jason, only one of us is old enough to remember Bill as a player. And I think we both know who that person is, and I don't necessarily feel great about it. But I know you well enough to know that if you sat next to someone for as long as you sat next to Bill Walton, that you knew his career backward and forward. So I want to talk about him as a person, but I do feel like we're not really talking about him a ton as a player. I haven't heard as much of the talk about him as a player in these last 24 hours. So what stands out to you when you think about Bill Walton as a player?
Well, I had the very good fortune of being joined on these NBA shows we did the past couple years, with Bill having conversations with people like Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. And so watching them talk and just sprinkling in a question or two off and on just to see if we could go another direction was so instructive for me, because he was clearly such a marvelous teammate, somebody that everybody loved to be on the floor with. And they gave Larry Bird so much guff with those Celtics teams, in my understanding, listening to them talk. But, you know, and Bill talking when we did about his career, you know, missing one shot out of more than 20 in one of the biggest stages you could ever be on, and having that eat away at him, and having John Wooden needle him about that when Coach Wooden was with us, that shows the competitiveness and the intensity that he had and that team had, the UCLA team, but also the Celtics. And I mean, just sheer toughness and ruggedness and love for the game of basketball, just love for the beauty and the art of playing basketball is my takeaway. But listening to him and his teammates talk, as I was so fortunate to get to do just as something of a bystander in those moments, I was struck by how much they loved him as a person, yeah, but as a teammate and as somebody that they trusted in every way to give everything he had in every moment.
So I never met Bill. I used to fill in quite a bit for Dan Patrick on his radio show, and he would have Bill on as a guest, and kind of the routine that they had worked out was when Bill was coming on, you would just welcome him in. I had him on a few times when I was filling in. You'd just welcome him in. You'd say, Bill, how are you doing? And then he would just go. He'd literally talk for the entire segment, which was like 13 minutes long. And he'd start with the NBA, and then it was, you know, whether Pluto should be a planet or not. And then maybe we'd go into a Grateful Dead set list from Yakima in 1973 or whatever it was. That's a long preamble to say that's kind of who he was to the public, right? And I think to a certain extent that's who he was on some of the game broadcasts that you did with him and that others did with him as well. What I want to try to get at is, who was he away from the court? I mean, when you're doing games with someone, you're breaking bread with them, you're going to shoot-arounds with them, you're spending a lot of time with them that's not on microphone. Who was he when he was not mic'd up?
Yeah, so it's two things that come to mind. One, he's as kind and generous as the day is long. He opened his house for so many people, including me and our crew from the NBA the past couple of years when we did those games from his house. His wife Lori and her sister Betty and their entire family opened their house to us, and I will be forever grateful for that. But I also, like, what strikes me to say to you is, when we were at shoot-arounds, we didn't really talk. When we had dinner, we did, and we would talk about anything and everything under the sun and what books we're reading and whatever it might be, and just listen to music. But being in his presence was just that sunlight. But when we were doing games, he definitely would say to us, whoever it was that he was calling the game with, save it for the air, right? So the first day that I was with him in Maui, I came over to say hello, and Sully was like, yeah, he doesn't really want to talk to you right now. He just said, save it for the air, because he wanted it to be as spontaneous and extemporaneous as humanly possible, or inhumanly possible, you know? So I love doing games with him because we didn't plan anything. And I know Dave feels the same way, and Roxy, and I'm not the only person who's ever done games with him. But I did adore the fact that it was all one big ad lib and one big test of all your knowledge until that moment in time. You know, the couple times when he asked me about a book that I had read, you know, he turned to me and he said, "Have you read Steve Martin's autobiography, Born Standing Up?" And I had recently read it. And I said, "Yeah, it's great." He looked at me like, wow, you know, and those moments when we were on the same page, or when I could introduce something to him that he hadn't heard of, it was just truly special.
Final question for you, Jason. What's your favorite Bill Walton memory?
I don't live in a binary world, Dave. I don't have favorites. That's what I want to say when anybody, when you just ask me that question, that's what he would say to me. But one of my favorite memories of things we've done recently is the NBA game that he and I did, those games from his house. There was one last year where the whole idea of the Open is that Bill and I were playing basketball against one another. And we did the Open, and I was getting ready to dunk the ball because the name of the show is Throw It Down. And I went in to dunk the ball, and he absolutely thrashed my shot. It was like he was back in the NBA. He blocked my body and the shot, and it was a full force of 70 years of keeping your body up to a level that I could never dream of. But there were no kid gloves, and there was no, well, you know, let's start with the training wheels of Bill Walton, on the air, off the air, physically, mentally. There was none of that. So that's one of my favorites. And the other one, when we did the White Sox game together, and we had James McCann on post-game on a headset, right? So headset down on the field, usually 2 questions in this industry. I swear to you, they went 10 minutes. Like, James, what did you eat for breakfast today? James, what is that under your eyes? It was eye black. What's it like to hit a home run? Like, any number of things. And James McCann would not take the bait for me trying to let him go. And at one point in the interview, I just said, "Hey, you signed up for this now. I tried to get you out of here," and James just kind of laughed and moved on. And I will say, the reverence that people had for Bill's curiosity, I hear a lot of people use the word inspiring just because it's a word to grab. He really did inspire people to be different in so many ways. And I am really fortunate that I've gotten to know him even a little bit, so I can say that my worldview has changed because of Bill Walton, because it absolutely has. The light that he brought, and the joy and the happiness and the level of interest in specific details. Dave, like I'm telling you, he asked Mark Few at Maui for like the cross streets of where Mark Few's dad worked. I want to say he was a priest of some sort. He was in religion.
Yeah.
For some, and he asked for the specific cross streets so he could mention them on the air. His level of curiosity is so granular and specific. I will think about that man for every day that I'm on this earth.
Well, Jason Benetti, thank you so much for sharing some of your memories of Bill with us. I know it's a busy day. You got a Tigers game to call today. Appreciate you taking the time, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dave. I love talking about that man. And I hope he's reincarnated in like the Grand Canyon or something like that. Or as some member of the Grateful Dead in the reenactment of the original Dead above, or something like that, because he can't be done. He won't be done.
He's hanging out with Jerry Garcia as we speak. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Dave.
After winning his first National Player of the Year honor at UCLA and leading the Bruins to a title, the counterculturalist Walton told John Wooden that he didn't have the right to make him wear his hair shorter. I said, "That's right," Wooden recalled later, "but I have the right to determine who plays, and we are going to miss you." I think I speak for the entire sports world when I say we're all going to miss Bill Walton. NCAA tourney bids handed out in baseball yesterday. Indiana earns an at-large bid its second in a row, 11th all-time. The Hoosiers start play on Friday in Knoxville, Tennessee. Big Ten regular season champ Illinois into the tourney for the 5th time under head coach Dan Hartleb, most of any coach in program history. 13th all-time appearance for the Illini. And then Nebraska got an automatic bid by virtue of winning the Big Ten tournament over the weekend. First time the Huskers have ever won it. They lost their opening game in Omaha, then won 5 in a row, capping it off with a 2-1 win over Penn State on Sunday. Will Bolton, the Huskers, tourney bound for the 18th time with play starting Friday in Stillwater.
Understanding that you got to go earn it. You got to go earn it every day. And, that's the thing that, we're trying to think about pushing buttons with the team and the message and talking. That seems to really resonate with this group is just the rent's due every day. You got to show up and you got to earn it. So, that's the thing. I mean, you got to get the work done in the cages, on the field, with your defensive reps and, their bullpen sessions and how you play catch and just all of it. Just trying to stay, like I said, process driven and be able to keep it going.
As a look at the matchups, the Huskers the lone 2 seed, Illini and Hoosiers 3 seeds. You see the opponents. Interestingly enough, the Illini and Indiana State played less than a month ago in Champaign, and Illinois won 21-11. That is going to do it for us. Thanks so much for watching Big Ten Today. Next Big Ten Today coming your way on Wednesday here on the Big Ten Network. I'm Dave Revson. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.